We discussed this briefly last time, and we had a presentation from the proponent, who I don't think is here today. And let me just tell you what the procedural posture of this item is. As I mentioned with respect to the last item, before the Charter Commission can move any item forward, whether it's a proposal by ordinance or to go on the ballot, and this would be one to go on the ballot, we have to have at least one public hearing. This is a discussion by the Charter Commission to determine whether or not we have a public hearing. If there is a majority vote by the Charter Commission to have a public hearing, then we would have one or more public hearings before considering this item for a vote. If there is not a majority of the Charter Commission in favor of having public hearings on this matter, then this matter would be dropped from the agenda. The Charter Commission would be done with it. The petitioner could, if he chose to do so, proceed to gather signatures to get this on the ballot. But the Charter Commission would not be taking any further action. So again, this is a discussion by commissioners as to whether or not we want to consider holding public hearings for this matter.
Are we voting on to have a public hearing at this meeting now, or are we going to vote later?
We would vote as to whether or not to have a public hearing at this meeting. So I'm not going to ask anybody to make a motion until we've had the benefit of some discussion. So if anybody would like to offer views on whether or not we should have public hearings, I will entertain those views now. Commissioner Cohen.
I'm not going to oppose a public hearing on the matter, but my opinion about the measure itself is that it is unnecessary. And when we get to the point where we are going to if we do have a public hearing and we get to the point where we continue to consider this on the merits, I'll have a good deal more to say on the subject.
Any other commissioners wish to offer their views?
Mr. Chair.
Commissioner Drew.
Mr. Chair, I'm going to propose moving this forward. I think this is an amendment that deserves the proponents to get out in the streets of Minneapolis and get the signatures. Go talk to the community, do the work behind it, see if there's support for your amendment, and then bring it forward that way. Having a public hearing and then moving beyond that, I think they should go back and get the signatures of the public if this should move forward. So I'll be opposing having a public hearing.
Thank you. Any other commissioners this time? Commissioner Sandberg.
I understand what Commissioner Drew Isaacson is saying, but I think sometimes our public hearings serve a valuable educational function for the public, and I think that whether or not having a public hearing, there's no guarantee that we'll support it. And I suspect, like Commissioner Cohen, there's a number of us who really aren't sure about the amendment because we don't have enough information. And part of those public hearings, in fact, bring us more information. So I would not be opposing the public hearing.
Commissioner Kozak.
I guess I'm like Commissioner Sandberg and Cohen, agnostic on the public hearing. If we have one, I wouldn't oppose it, but I'm certainly not going to move to do it because I did not hear at the last meeting a compelling reason to do this. It's almost a solution in search of a problem. I think we can all disagree with the city council, and I'm sure most people in this room have at one time or another, but I'm not sure this proposal is going to solve any problems. But if people have some strong feelings on it, I'd like to hear more. But I certainly didn't hear it last time, but I'm open if someone's going to make a motion, I'd support it, but I'm not going to make it.
Any other commissioners? Commissioner Abbott.
I think that I'm with the consensus here, right? I think a public hearing, I would not oppose having a public hearing, even though from what I understand of the proposal, I don't support it, and I think it's unnecessary for reasons that have been discussed. And I think if we actually get to the point where we vote on it, I think, like Commissioner Cohen, I think I'll have much more to say about it. I'm deeply skeptical of this, but I do think that there is a public hearing function that we serve, and I think it would be helpful to get those comments out, even if I'm opposed to the actual amendment.
I'm going to speak myself substantively on this. I am opposed to conducting a public hearing and will vote against it if somebody makes a motion and it is seconded. There are a number of very good reasons to oppose this proposal, as evidenced by the remarks that City Clerk Casey Carl made after our last meeting, but at the end of our last meeting. But a basic reason as far as the Charter Commission is concerned is that I think proposals that come before us, and we've used this term before, should be well-baked, should be a broad discussion before they come before us. We do not, as a Charter Commission, discuss putting something on the ballot to start the public conversation. We have the public conversation first. We let that inform us, and then we put it on the ballot. We haven't done that here. I've been on the Charter Commission a long time. Nothing like this has ever been proposed. I think the last time something like this was proposed was in the 90s. There's obviously not a groundswell of support, and most people don't even know what it is. I think if the proponents want us to consider this, they need to go out and have that discussion, and we need to see a level of discussion and interest in the community that we do not see now. So I'm opposed to putting this on the ballot. Mr. Rubenstein.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm also opposed to having a public hearing. I think the reasons stated already are reasons that I agree very strongly with. And I would add that after reviewing the city clerk's memo on the subject, that those people who might be most at risk for being disenfranchised by this system would probably not necessarily be here or know about the public hearing. We usually do not have a large turnout for such hearings, and we don't really have a way effectively of starting a conversation in the community that would be sufficient to get a turnout. And so basically the people who might be most affected by such a change wouldn't really have an opportunity to participate at this point.
Is there any other discussion? And then I'll ask if there's a motion to move this forward to public hearing. Seeing no other discussion, is there a motion to move this forward to public hearing? Is there a motion? Hearing no motion, that concludes our business on this item. I will move on to item 7, public comment. Is there any public comment today?